Nigon, Jennifer, thanks for being with us. Nigon, this report concludes, among many other things, that the histories of cemeteries at former Indian residential school sites are evidence of genocide and mass human rights violations. Your thoughts on some of the findings here?
The UN Genocide Convention, adopted in 1948, uses a number of criteria to define genocide, and the third within the article is the the fifth actually, the forcible removal of children from one group to another. Then, of course, there's the intentional harm of the members of a group. The debate has always been around the mental intent, because the physical intent is evident. What this report does is it shows photographs of church members, leaders, priests, with children in cemeteries, children most oftentimes handling the deaths of their classmates, either burying or carrying their coffin. Fortunately, the faces were blurred out so that there's some consideration of survivors. But that shows evidence that there was mental awareness of harming of children in the schools, and that it just simply continued. And so if you were to watch someone being harmed and do nothing about it, then you are complicit in that harm. And that shows a mental intent to harm children. So not only were their children forcibly removed, but they were also mentally intended to be harmed. So that absolutely shows evidence of genocide. It should be no more debate, and this report illustrates this.
Jennifer, as somebody who's pretty active on social media, you no doubt see a lot of this denialism out there. The special interlocutor mentioned she hoped this new historical report will combat some of that denialism. Do you think that will do just that?
Unfortunately, I would like to hope for the best, but unfortunately, I don't think so. I think that there is a real serious problem out there of people that carry these biases and stereotypes and deep-rooted hate for our people naturally, and with that comes just denying any atrocities that our people have faced. And unfortunately, residential school denialism is on the rise, and the people that are championing the conversation around this are bringing the people in. I think we need to look at the fact that the truth has been outlined in the TRC report. It's also been transferred through our oral history and our knowledge that's been shared with us. And I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that I notice is you'll go on social media and people say, well, there's been talks about mass graves, and they really get into the nitty-gritty of talking about the terminology used. But at the end of the day, we are our own people with our own customs, beliefs, and cultural practices. And, when there was the jawbone that was found in Saskatchewan at Star Blanket Cree Nation, I saw on social media that they were given strict instruction from the knowledge keepers and elders to put that jawbone back in the ground. And there's also been talk that if there is any potential bodies in the ground, to leave them alone, because we view death very differently than other cultures. And I feel like that respect and that patience is not given to us to navigate this as we see fit. And unfortunately, I think we're going to continue dealing with residential school denialism, and there's going to be a real effort for us to combat that.
Right. Nigon, the final report on missing children in unmarked graves will come this fall. What do you think the hopes are for that report?
Hope is that there'll be a real commitment to commemoration, or their call for a commitment to commemoration. The fact is that Jennifer's right. If there were to be exhumations, which I highly believe is unlikely, it's more DNA study of soil. You're not going to, anyone who expects to find exhumations or bodies dug up is simply just macabre or just doesn't understand science. The fact is that these children were inappropriately buried most oftentimes, and we are talking about burials that took place over half a century ago. So it really is no body to exhume. What we're looking for is essentially a needle in a haystack to be able to pull up evidence within children or the evidence of these cemeteries. So what the hope would be is that there would be an appropriate measure or further commitment to be able to analyze where children are buried, because the reality is that communities need to know where their children are buried. They need to be able to commemorate those spaces. And as I wrote in a column, for our ceremonial purposes, deaths death for us, for Indigenous peoples, is a beginning. Part of what we have to do in that burial ceremony is help our relatives to be able to head to the west. There's certain instructions, certain protocols that have to be followed in order to assist our relatives to head in that direction. So that ceremony has to take place in order to release the spirits to be able to head in that direction. That's just a part of what this report needs to do, is to be able to further commit to help communities to heal from this terrible atrocity.
Jennifer, as we're continuing to see with the TRC, more than a decade ago now, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, getting action on these recommendations is difficult. Do you think this will be any different?
I think it will continue to be difficult. I think anytime it comes to any of these issues, it's a fight, and our advocates across the country are putting in so much work to just be heard and have these actions taken seriously. My hope is that it isn't going to be difficult, but there's a number of big things that have been going on. We have our lobbying body through the AFN currently going through what they're going through, and there's some stuff happening there, and that's going to prove to be difficult for getting that national voice. We're expecting a change in government next year. What's that going to look like? Is the funding going to continue coming to our communities across the country that are trying to do those reports and that ground penetrating radar? And then what does the healing process look like from that as well?
Jennifer Negon, we'll leave it there. Appreciate your time this week.
Yeah, we glad.